Hey guys, welcome to my tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I created this scene and I'm going to recreate this scene in Blender 2.8. I was randomly watching a YouTube video and there was a video on subway station. From that, I got an idea to create a subway station in Blender. So it was easier for me to block out the forms and was easy for me to gather references for individual objects. I'm sharing my values so that you can make your own subway station on your own. I have subdivided the video in 3 halves. The first 10 minutes is about blocking and modeling the mesh. The second half will be about texturing and material. And in the last I will talk about lighting, which will include area lights, irradiance volume and some volumetric light with particle system to create the environment. So first I started with the subway platform with x value of 3.11 and y value of 16, then added edge loop and beveled it up to 2.16 from the center, then added edge loop again and slided its position upward, then selected the upper side and extruded on their normal face. After that, I made the pillar for supporting the roof and added cube scale all to 0.26, then 7.80 to z-axis and 0.73 on y-axis. Then added edge loops, beveled it and extruded inside and scaled on z-axis. After that, I added a cube and scaled it down and moved it to the bottom of the pillars. Then added simple cylinder with beveled on one side to give bolts look and duplicate it into pairs up to the bottom and applied it on every side of the pillar. Then I used array modifier and decided to put 7.8 distance between each pillars. And duplicated it on each side of the platform. Then in edit mode, edit simple box for board on both sides to have some signs or for warnings. If you want to have a better view of your models, try to check the cavity and colors for the material in viewport shading. After that, I started the roof of the station that will determine the width of the scene. Use 0.1 for z-axis and 10 for x-axis and 7.9 for y-axis. Then I added some cubes that will support the roof. You can also add some venting panels to add more detail to it. After the roof, I created the wall with simple box and added some edge loops to mark the areas that will be extruded out later. After extruding it out, select the bottom of the edge of the wall, duplicate it and extrude it out to the edge of the station platform. Then Shift D to duplicate it and move it to the other side of the platform and rotate it on 180 degrees. Then with simple box, make some pillars in a way that should look it supports the roof, and then apply array modifier and array it from the start of the wall till the end of the wall. After that, duplicate it on the other side of the wall as well. After that, I made stairs with the x value of 0.25, y 2.5 and z value 0.13. Then duplicate the upper part of the stair face and extrude it slightly and pull it from front to cover the lower part. Then use array modifier to duplicate and position it in inclined direction. After that, I created the wall with a cube and duplicated several times to wherever I wanted to close a space. After that, I used simple box to create the board for the map of the subway. Used inset and extrude to create a space for the map. For the bench, again use simple cube, scaled it and duplicate it several times, and again duplicate it and rotate it on 90 degree to create the other half of it. Then again using the cylinder and spin tool created the railing just like I did for sci-fi environment. After duplicating it to the both side of the platform, I used the cylinder again to create some pipes and used array modifier to increase its length. After that, I just close the upper roof of the wall by scaling the cube, so if I add a sunlight or exterior light, it should block it. For texturing, go to edit mode and select all, then press U to select smart UV to define the method for UV unwrapping. Then toggle to wireframe mode and switch to orthographic view. Then go to the material tab and hit the plus button to add material slot. Now then, by pressing B, you can click and drag your mouse to select the polygon, then hit assign. In this way, you can apply materials to your selected faces. Now in shader workspace, first switch to Blender developer mode and then use the ambient occlusion with screen space reflection to have better display of your models. Then in material tab, search for the image texture and hit the folder icon and select the image you want to load in and plug it in diffuse node. Then again search for texture coordinate and then mapping node. Connect the texture coordinate into mapping node and mapping to image texture. You can correct the size of the texture from mapping scale values for X and Y coordinates. Then duplicate the image texture and load the ambient occlusion map. Then search for Mix RGB node and put it to overlay. Then plug in both textures in Mix RGB node and then plug the mapping node to the new image texture. Then search for the matte node and put it after the ambient occlusion map. Select power in it. It will help to control the strength of the ambient map. Then again duplicate the image texture and load the roughness map. And connect the mapping node to it. You need to repeat the process for each and every texture you want to plug in for the materials. After roughness, add color ramp to control the roughness based on grayscale of the texture and play with its pointer to have different roughness value on the floor. Then add Mix RGB after the color ramp and change it to overlay. And then search and put the Musgrave texture and color ramp in Mix RGB. After that, load the normal texture, and for normal texture don't forget to set it to non-color data and search for normal map and plug it into the normal map. Then again plug the mapping node to the normal texture. You can also plug the mapping node to the must-give texture if you want to make it based on the UV textures. Then select all the nodes by pressing A in material node and press Ctrl C to copy and Ctrl V to paste it into other materials, so that you don't need to rearrange the material nodes for any other materials. Now you just need to change the image textures. I applied the same procedure to the pillar, to the ground, to the wall and to the roof as well. After that, I just applied simple metallic material to the railings and pipes. You can reuse these values for your scene. For the line pattern of the wall, I didn't have enough time to recreate the texture for it, so for the lines I have used a plain mesh and grab its upper edge and slightly move to right, and then apply array modifier to multiply it to the end of the wall. Give red color to its material, duplicate to the other side of the wall. After that, I just change the color of the bench material to green. I assign two materials for the board, and by selecting the center face again use the smart UVs on it, and in UV tab I just grab the two vertex and covered the wall texture with it. Then I move to the pillars board, and for the text press Shift A and select text. You can edit the text while in edit mode, but if you are in object mode you can easily scale or rotate it. After that, assign black color to the pillar boards and then make it closer to the pillar and duplicate it to each pillars. For the lighting, I have used the area lights and scale it X value of 0.22 and Y value of 1.54 with a power of 98 with custom shadows checked with slightly yellowish color. Then duplicate at a distance of 0.88. Now go to the render tab and change the world settings color to black. To avoid the light hitting the roof, we just need a box over the area lights and assign black color to it. Now put the cursor to the center of the lights and try to cover it with a mesh plane to create a source light. Assign emissive material to the mesh. In the same manner, move to the center of the platform and use area lights with the scaling of 0.55 and do the same procedure with it, but leave the strength of the light to 10. Now just duplicate the lights and its light source after every pillar. For the indirect light, I have used the Irradiance volume, and make sure to cover the walls of the scene with the inner box of the Irradiance volume. Then change the resolution of XY to 16 and leave the Z to 4. After that, just go to the scene tab and hit the bake lighting. You can preview the irradiance size by clicking the eye icon that is available under the baking tab. Now click on bloom to add volume to the lights. Then you can play with the scene light and shadow with exposure and gamma, which is available under the color management tab. I have put gamma to 0.6 and exposure to 0.75. Here's a simple trick. If you don't want to have bounce light on any of the wall, for instance, I want the roof to be darker, so what I did was I just moved the inner box of the irradiance slightly below the roof wall. And if you check the soft shadows in the shadow tab and bake again, it will give your shadows a soft feathered effect. To have volumetric light, I have just added a cube and scaled it up to cover the whole scene. Assign material to it, and then in material tab just change the surface to none, and in volume tab just change the volume to volume scatter. Then change the density to 0.05 and anisotropy to 0.74. Then switch back to viewport shading, take a box mesh, and in the particle tab hit the plus button to add particles to it. Change the frame start to 0 and physics types to void. Then change the value of max air speed to 5 and max air acceleration to 0.1. Now add a plane to the scene and scale it down. Now go back to the particle setting and under the render change it to object and select the eyedropper and click the plane mesh to display it as a particle. In the viewport display, check the show emitter to hide the box from the scene. Don't worry, you can reselect the box while you are in the wireframe mode. Now go to the render tab and play with the scale and random scale of the plane. Press spacebar to play animation and see how it's working. I've used the particle system to create some dust and flies that are near the lights. You can texture the plane, but I'm using the emissive material on the source plane to have glowing effects for the dust particle. After applying the material, duplicate it below every panel of the area lights. Then you can play the animation to see how it's working. After that, we only need to add reflection cube map and duplicate it to the center of the ground after every pillar. Then just hit the big cube map only to capture reflection. And I just got some really dark reflection and I will rectify it, but I forgot to add lights to the front of the wall, so I'm just duplicating and repeating the area lights and the source light mesh. As you can see, I am having a slightly dark color on my Irradiance sphere and sphere reflection. The cause of this problem is I just forgot to uncheck the show emitter inside the render and viewport display, which are under particles settings. So just uncheck it in every box so that it does not darkens the environment, and if you bake it after that you will get pretty clean results. In the end, I just added simple plane as some papers on the ground and some boards with the text mesh. And use the splines for the pipes. And then added sunlight from the stairs with emissive plane with skylight color. In the end, added some circle plane mesh with emissive materials and spotlight. And that's all for this tutorial. Hope you guys like it. Subscribe my channel to get more videos and support me on Patreon page, where you will get the main project files that I've used in my tutorials. Thanks for watching.